Come on in the room. Come on in the room. Bucks. No Bucks tonight. No Bucks tonight. Bucks Pelicans postponed. Was gonna be a fun one leading up into the Miami Heat game, which again rivals week in the NBA and just shows again that Adam Silver in the league doesn't know what they're doing. I don't know how you promo rivals week in the NBA and then give teams back to back. So they got to, again, who knows how teams rest players and whatnot. I don't understand all this promo. The NBA, I see what you had on NBA Cup and some of those games end up being back to back. So I don't understand it. But anyway, we are live. It's the Cream City crossover. Guru Trey Crosby III.
Chris King.
Justin.
Yeah. We're in the building tonight. Again, no game. Bucks been postponed. We'll give you an opportunity to come on in the room. So this is kind of an impromptu post-game show. Not a post-game. It was an impromptu show. No post-game. We hadn't had a post-game in a minute because we didn't have a post-game Sunday when the Bucks played the 76ers and won that game 123-109 due to some football. Everybody was watching the game, so we didn't have a show then. So we've been off for what? When's the last time? Was it Friday night? When they played the Raptors, we did a show that night, right? Yeah. So we have not had a show since, it feels like a long time. We're already into Wednesday. So we give you an opportunity to get into the room. And again, we want to address some issues related to trades. Again, a lot of rumors that have been coming out about the Milwaukee Bucks and about Chris Middleton and Bradley Beal. Rumors been flying all over the place today. Phoenix Suns obviously been trying to get Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler suspended from the Miami Heat. Heat one out of Butler. Butler wants out of Miami. I mean, it is a mess right now. This is like full-blown drama in the NBA. I mean, this is getting just as good and juicy as Marcellus Wiley and Ryan Clark on Twitter today acting a fool. But again, I want to appreciate everybody for coming into the room. Tell a friend. Cream City Crossover is doing a live show right now. A little out of the ordinary, but here we are. Wanted to talk to you about all the things that are going on today. So again, want to prayers out to everybody in New Orleans. 8 inches of snow. Those folk are not used to it. Like the game is postponed. Those guys are not used to the snow. So the game gets postponed. Before we get into our topics, then tomorrow the Bucks are supposed to play tomorrow against the Miami Heat. If they have a show, we will be on. However, the last I heard about the Bucks and the Heat potentially playing tomorrow is the Bucks are stuck in New Orleans and that maybe they can get a flight sometime early afternoon to get out of New Orleans to get to Milwaukee, which means they have that tip time for tomorrow is that's a 6:30 tip time in Milwaukee. So if they get out the plane at 1-2 o'clock, whatever that is, they would be 3-4 hours away from a basketball game. Supposed to be nationally televised TNT game. The Miami Heat are already waiting for the Bucks. However, of course, as we also all know, Jimmy Butler won't be there. Remember, he was trying to get his own flight to Milwaukee because he didn't want to take the team flight. So again, that's what you're looking forward to. We'll see if it takes place. We'll see if the Bucks and Heat are going tomorrow. But that one, like I said, could very well be postponed due to some travel issues and travel restrictions. But if it is going on TNT, you know where you should be. Curly's Waterfront Sports Bar and Grill, $3 bottles and pints out of Curly's Waterfront Sports Bar and Grill. I want to make sure we get that in as well. But yeah, give me you guys give me your thoughts. Talk to me how you feeling right now. Bucks and Pelicans postponed. Bucks Heat may be postponed. How are you feeling right now? Bucks are on a 4-game win streak, and then we'll jump into some topics in just a second here.
Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, I wonder if the Bucks should have bussed over to somewhere in Texas. I mean, I know it's a lot, but waiting all day and getting a flight from New Orleans, which is a fairly small airport, considering what you got over there in Dallas and what you got in the 2 Houston airports. I just think one of those places may have been opened sooner. It's tough for New Orleans. I got my son's at Troy University in Alabama. My daughter's in Mobile. It lives in Mobile, junior in high school, hour and a half from New Orleans. They got 8 inches down there. I think Panama City got 8 inches. And these are folks that aren't used to snow. I mean, Trey, we look at it where we live now in North Carolina, how our state reacts to snow, and then it's 100 times worse the further south you get. So I just hope these guys get home healthy. If we get home at 2 p.m., these dudes, These dudes aren't 21, 22, majority of them. So I don't think we can just get off the plane, go right to the gym and go hoop, man. I don't think so. So they can put us at a severe disadvantage. One thing about Spoelstra's boys, they're going to come into Milwaukee. They'll be ready to play no matter whose name is on the back of that jersey because them boys is ready to hoop. And, Tyler Hero being from the Mill, he always wants to put on a show in front of his hometown guys. So I'm a little bit scared about tomorrow. I think it's a big game for us to win. Every game with us starting out 2-8 is big for me. So I'm a little worried, man.
This came as a shock to me, waking up to seeing the news that this was a postponed game because, like Kendrick said, they not like us. They can't hang down there in the South how we can in the Midwest. I'm an Ohio guy. You guys been in Milwaukee at some point. Justin from Milwaukee, it was kind of surprising to not have a game tonight, but you move. That's what you are a professional athlete for. It just kind of sometimes these things happen. So looking forward to kind of getting back into the swing of things. It was a great win. I would be remiss to not talk about the win the Bucks had versus the Philadelphia 76ers, just because that is a team who does have some star power and is a team that could have beat you if you didn't have your A game. But the Bucks showed up, they played well, and Giannis, the dominance has just continued. And so looking forward to continuing that and continuing to watch this team grow and maybe some changes on the horizon. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's all there. You're looking at potential changes. You're looking at all the different things that may go on in Milwaukee. If you're just joining us again, we have an impromptu show here talking about the Bucks, talking about the trade rumors that took place in lieu of no game tonight against the New Orleans Pelicans. And let's start this thing going with the state of the Bucks and where the Bucks are, currently. They sit. Let's see the standings here. They sit at 24-17, 3 games out of third place. The Celtics started to kind of fall. So you're looking again. You're I think 6 games or so out of second. And that's gonna be tougher to get to with half the season left. But the Celtics are 6-4 in their last 10, so they've started a little bit of a slide, if you will. You got a few games up on the 6th spot, so you're really starting to see that top 4 cement itself. Again, you're 1 game up over the Indiana Pacers. You've won 4 in a row. You're 7-3 in your last 10. Your defense has become a top 10 defense. It looks like your offense over the last few games, last 10 games or so, has started to pick it up. Damian Lillard has started to look like the Damian Lillard that we want to see consistently playing well, shooting the ball well, and he's doing that. You know how the Bucks look. Giannis has gotten over his illness and is getting back to the paint and scoring like you want him to see. You're seeing a Chris Middleton who is facilitating well and playing well in the minutes that he gets. This Bucks team, I'll say it, has started to round the corner. And then you have the midst of all this trade rumors. Again, you start off 2-8, and you're trying to figure out what does this team need? How do they look? What is everything going to look like? But when you look at the state of the Bucks, where you're sitting at 24-17, and you're starting to make this push towards the All-Star break and getting better to see maybe you can be a 3 seed, maybe even a 2 seed. What are you looking at? I'm just saying the team as is, as far as how they're gelling and how they are just playing as a unit together.
Yeah, I really like it, man. I think things are coming together a lot. I think guys are starting to play better defense, rebound the ball better, getting passing lanes, doing things that they have to do to make us trend upwards to that 2 spot, that 3 spot. And I think we're going to need a lot of help to get there. But the Boston Celtics have not proven to be a lights out team. The New York Knicks have not proven to be a completely lights out team. I know both of those teams showed up tremendously when they played our Milwaukee Bucks. However, when they played some teams such as the Toronto Raptors, Chicago Bulls, et cetera, they managed a way to trip and stub their toe. So I think if we get a little bit more of that, this team keeps going in the way that it's going, I think we'll get to the 3 seed at a minimum. But more importantly, I think we'll get up to that 2 spot, man. And then all this 2-8 and all this bad start, this guy not playing well at that moment, that guy not playing well at that moment, we'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it was really just the team was able to pick up some momentum, right? After we had those little stretches where, you lost to the Nets and you lost to some of these poor teams, right? I think there was some self-reflecting they had to do, and they did. And I think that's kind of propelled this Bucks team to be on a roll right now. They realize what is at stake. They realize the seeding implications that they could possibly get up to that 3 seed. I think all of that factors into how this Bucks team is playing at this moment. And you also, like we talk about, make or miss league. This Bucks team started to shoot the ball way better, knock down open shots, and you go as these two superstars go, right? And so if Dame and Giannis are locked in, and we know Giannis has been for the most part of the season, Dame has as well, but those guys clicking together has been really fun to watch, and part of the reason I think this Bucks team looks a whole lot better from some of these stretches during the season. And then, you factor in the play of Ryan Rollins, the play of Gary Trent Jr. off the bench, Taurean Prince still getting back to what he started the season as. Like, everybody falling into place has, I think, impacted the way that this Bucks team has been able to play. And like I said, looking forward to keeping that going, right? We don't want to have the inconsistency stretches where they go and, like you said, Justin, stub their toe versus bad teams, because it doesn't bode well for the future in terms of trying to win 4 games out of 7 in a playoff series. If you're just that team that's inconsistent and squeaks into the playoffs, right? So I think the consistency is there, the effort is there, and make or miss league, they're knocking shots down, and that's a credit to Giannis, Dame, getting guys open and being who they are.
Let's jump into it and talk about the trade rumors that began. They've been going on for a little bit for the Bucks, but really started to pick up today. I guess yesterday, and especially when we got to the Bradley Beal stuff, really started to pick up yesterday, last night, where the reports started to kind of trickle out. That, and again, this is the funny part, that this entire thing started really on the heels of Phoenix trying to get Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat trying to get Jimmy Butler. Phoenix trying to get Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler wanted to get to Phoenix, and the Miami Heat wanting to get rid of Jimmy Butler kind of by all means necessary. And so you start to see some things kind of come through the news wire. And I really think, and I don't know if and here's what I think happened. This is my guess. My guess is that for Bradley Beal, because that's the guy that has to move out of Phoenix for this to work. He also has a no trade clause. The Milwaukee Bucks are one of the few teams that can facilitate a trade that would also be willing to acquire a Bradley Beal. On paper, where you say it might make some sense. And I'm not even talking about from a Bucks standpoint. I'm talking about from a Phoenix, Miami standpoint of looking around the league and saying, what team would maybe want to do this? Because again, it is very hard, almost impossible from a cap standpoint for Phoenix to get a deal done with Miami for them to get Jimmy Butler. It's not impossible, but it is almost impossible for those two teams to do it. I think it is impossible for those two teams to do it on their own. They've got to be very creative, and they've got to add 3, 4, 5 teams to make it go, which means one of those 3, 4, 5 teams has got to be willing to take Bradley Beal. The issue, and let me say it's not impossible, but the issue is the Miami Heat have said they don't want Bradley Beal at all. They will not take back Bradley Beal. So the only way this got to work is you got to find somebody that's willing to take on Bradley Beal and the $50-some million he's going to make over the next couple of years. And so you look at the logical landing spots around the league, there are not many suitors for Bradley Beal. But the one place that it could, again, potentially make sense is you're looking at a Milwaukee that could maybe want to get off of Chris Middleton. And the reason I think that there is, and I think it's some people have taken, because, and I'll say this, it has since come out that Chris Haynes has reported as of tonight that the Bucks are not interested in Bradley Beal at all. You had John, I think it's Gambarino. I'm probably butchering his name, but Gambo out in Phoenix was very credible because, again, we talked about the fact that Bradley Beal has a no trade clause, and I do believe this. Bradley Beal, and Mark Bartelstein of his man, I think he's at Priority Sports. His agent has refuted this, at least this part of the story. But Gambo says Bradley Beal would waive his no trade clause to come to a few teams, one of which being Milwaukee. I believe that because Gambo does not, he's pretty good about this kind of stuff. And Gambo admitted after the Chris Haynes report came out that that he had never heard that Milwaukee was interested in Bradley Beal. So it's just what I really think happened was they were looking around and finding teams. The Milwaukee Bucks made sense, and so Phoenix probably started to have the dialogue of trying to put together some type of framework that could maybe make this trade go through, and say and it involved the Milwaukee Bucks taking on Bradley Beal. That being said, and it seems like that deal is DOA at this point. That being said, it didn't stop last night and today from happening on Twitter and just the thought process. And I think a lot of people have to either come to terms with Chris Middleton's not available. And I'll say this other part I'll take into account too. And I believe this to be true. I think John Horst is treating Chris Middleton just like he did Bobby Portis last trade deadline, where we knew Bobby Portis was available, but he wasn't just going to take anybody for Bobby Portis. He wasn't just going. It wasn't like an addition by subtraction idea where we're just going to throw Bobby Portis away and whatever we get is fine. I'd rather take whatever. That clearly, at this point, if you believe Chris Haynes to be true, and I don't have any reason to doubt his reporting, that seems to be what the Bucks are doing with Chris Middleton. I do believe because one of the things where there's smoke, there's fire. Chris Middleton has, and again, we heard the report, or I believe it was the Shams had that report that the Bucks said they would trade Chris Middleton for Jimmy Butler. Like that would be somebody they would do it for. So I can't remember who had that report. It might have been Shams, but somebody had that report. If that's the case, at least what we do know is that Chris Middleton is not untouchable at this point. And so then it goes back to the question of, would you trade him for Bradley Beal? And when I first heard, I go to my thoughts and I'll let you guys give me yours. When I first heard it, my thought was, no, I would that sounds, I would not do that. However, as the night went on, my thought changed from, no, I wouldn't do it to, I wouldn't do it, but if they did, I could wrap my head around them doing it. And I'll give you a couple reasons as to why. If they had made this move, which again, they're not going to do it. It doesn't sound like. But if they did, it would have just told me a couple things about Chris Middleton. And it would have told me something that I think I may know, and I'm not sure if I do or not, but it remains to be seen. If they had made the move for Bradley Beal, it would have told me that Chris Middleton is officially cooked. And again, I'm not at the practices, but it is very telling when you start ramping him up to 25, 30, whatever you're trying to get him to, and now you can't. He's back. You put him on the 6-man, and he can only play 20 to maybe a little bit over 20 minutes a night. And you're trying to preserve his body. And the question is, in April, in May, and hopefully June, can Chris Middleton play 40-plus minutes every other night if it's a close game? Your third best player, I know Justin's going to come back. We got people, your third best player has to be able to go 40 minutes. He has to be able to go, especially on a top-heavy team like the Bucks have. You have to be able to do that. And that's the only reason why I could, again, I wouldn't want to do Bradley Beal. I wouldn't want to trade for Bradley Beal for Chris Middleton. I wouldn't want that to happen, but I could have talked myself into it reluctantly. I want to get your guys' thoughts. Let me know what are you guys thinking on that?
I mean, reluctantly would definitely be where I would sit on this. I don't want no parts about Bradley Beal at all. Is Bradley Beal a pretty good basketball player? Sure. He was pretty good in Washington. I think that I have a newfound respect for, even though I don't like to do it because I think he takes goofy charges and he hurt Giannis and cost us a playoff series. Kevin Love. Here's why I say that. Kevin Love was the man in Minnesota and then was traded to Cleveland and figured out a way to fit in that third fiddle role. We talked about Kent Bazemore, talking about how hard that role is to fit in, and Love did it with LeBron and Kyrie and found an excellent way to do it. Bradley Beal's already tried to be that third fiddle, and it didn't work well with him. And we're talking about injury prone here. I can't tell you that Bradley Beal's going to be able to give you 40 minutes a night once the playoffs come too, because every other week he's out as well. I know my guy, one more thing, Johnny Drains, listening to big realtor in Milwaukee, and he's a big Brewers fan, so he can relate to this. This is the equivalent of moving Josh Hader for the Milwaukee Brewers. And the locker room went down, you poured the gasoline on it, and you burnt it down. The Brewers missed the playoffs, and we were in a state of shambles, and luckily we ended up flipping it for William Contreras. So the only thing that made me even raise my eyebrow, and I don't want to trade Middleton. I don't want to trade Middleton for any of these dudes. Just straight up. None of them. Not now, not nan, nutter, wutta, as they say down here in these triangle area. The only thing that made me kind of at least listen was the potential of the 2 or 3 first-round picks, knowing that we have no draft capital that may open up other avenues for us. $50-something million. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't he going to make more than Dame and Giannis the next 2 years?
I believe that might be correct. You may be correct on that.
Yeah, that's crazy. Go ahead, Chris. I'm done.
To me, this was certainly an interesting name that had floated around previous years. If we remember, I think maybe a couple years before he went to the Suns, like there was talks about maybe this being the same trade that they were going to make or they were going to acquire Brad Beal. And it was always a situation for me, just like you, Trey, to where maybe I could talk myself into it. But the issue with Brad Beal is he just has not played much important basketball throughout his career. So when you factor that in, it's like, all right, well, I haven't really watched much of Brad Beal because he's always been the guy on the Wizards who had, 25 points a game or whatever it was, and he was carrying them to seasons that, I mean, they were just okay. They were bad a lot of the times, and they were never really great. So you never really pay attention to that type of guy, right? Like he's just kind of there. He's just kind of existing. And then he goes to the Suns, and he's playing a decreased role. Like he's playing Book and KD get the attention. They get the bright lights on them. So and they're on the West Coast. Us as fans on the East Coast or Central Time, we're not really watching the Suns as much unless it's the Bucks playing them. So that had always been kind of a difficult concern for me around Brad Beal, is that I just don't think that he's played enough important basketball. And then when he was thrusted into that role, he took a step back in his career. He's coming off the bench sometimes this year, and just being a third option. And how did that work? It didn't work well because last year did they even make the playoffs last year?
Phoenix, yeah, they made playoffs. I think
they got bounced though.
They got bounced first round.
Yeah, so
Minnesota got
Anthony Edwards. Yep. So right, so I don't understand necessarily the fit there. I would, like Trey said on Twitter, you said it earlier. Like I probably would have watched the Suns tonight. I probably would have.
Yeah, I wanted to see that.
I probably would have watched Brad Beal had he been in the lineup tonight, and just kind of see how he would fit in the Milwaukee Bucks offense. I don't really know him as a defender, so yeah, this was a kind of an interesting name. I just say this to say that I don't think this would be the play the Bucks would make. I don't think that they would trade Chris Middleton and kind of mess up a little bit of the chemistry that's going on and been able to form since Chris has come back into this Milwaukee Bucks lineup. But like I said, there would be maybe if I saw some eye-popping things offensively or some athleticism differences between the two, then I may be able to be okay with making that type of move. But since it may not happen, I will not lose sleep over it.
No, I'm not losing sleep over it at all. Let's go to the chat. Midwest Ball TV says, we don't want Beal. Charles Miller says, please don't let this trade happen. Brings back feelings of getting rid of Ray Allen type bad trade. I don't understand. He also says, everyone knows Beal's contract is worse than association, and we're going to trade for that. Please, no. Matthew Adler says, we don't want Beal or Jimmy. Chris finding his groove, and we need Bobby's rebounding despite his deficiencies. Don't forget the chemistry Chris and Giannis have also. Jay Hall says, make no trades. Keep the team as is. Lag says we're very willing to trade Chris, but not for Beal. You mentioned, Chris, the fit of Bradley Beal, and that's a good point because here's how I want to preface. I wouldn't have wanted the trade, but I'm just speaking as if it may have happened. The thought process behind it. Defensively, I think everybody's correct. Defensively, Bradley Beal and Dame don't work. Like it's really not a fit. That's a bad backcourt defensively. But then you get to the question of Chris Middleton, what you're replacing, Chris Middleton's defense. Your issue is Chris Middleton as a defender is not giving you much at this point either. He just can't move, and like that, and that's why this thing even whirls around in your head, because the guy can't move. And I think Bradley Beal in Phoenix is playing. He's been playing a little bit out of position some too, and then having to play that 6-man role. I think you would have, if he came in, you would have had him come in and start. But yeah, I mean, I agree it doesn't work. But there's the two reasons why I think you could wrap your head around it is, one, are you really losing anything defensively? Because Chris Middleton, at this stage in his career, I don't know what he's bringing defensively. And then your question is, offensively, can you get a guy? And I know Beal's had some injury history as well, but Bradley Beal, when he's healthy, looks healthy. Chris Middleton, healthy, sometimes doesn't look healthy. Even when he's been built to be, hey, he's fine, he's okay, clean bill of health, he still doesn't look healthy, and that's why they're playing him 20 minutes a night or whatever it is. And again, you got to have a guy that's going to actually play. The only other thing I'll say about this, and we can keep rolling here. The only other thing I'd say about this is what I don't like that I've seen from Bucks Twitter is people acting like Bradley Beal is just ass of all ass.
Yeah.
And he's not. Like I saw people say AJ Green, like this is what we do as Bucks fans, and people are so guilty of it. And it's like our players are better than our players stink. It's like two sides. Our players stink, and they're they're not good, and we want to trade the bad players, get your good players, or our players are so much better than we really think they're. And again, do I like AJ Green? Yes. Do I think the fit is there with AJ Green? Is he a very good player for this Bucks team, shooting threes, playing deep? Yes. But to sit on Twitter and come out and say AJ Green's actually a better player than Bradley Beal, no, the hell he's not. Like you don't have to do. I'd rather have Gary Trent Jr. than Bradley Beal. No, you wouldn't. You don't have to. We don't have to do that. That's all I'm saying. You don't have to do that. You cannot want Bradley Beal to be in Milwaukee, but also not be so delusional as to say that AJ Green is a better player than Bradley Beal. He is just. It's just unequivocally. It's just false. It's just false. That's all I'll say on that. And yes, we did see, and we mentioned it before. I'm assuming before you got here. Do the right thing. Do we see Chris Haynes? Yes, the Chris Haynes report that Bradley Beal, that there's been no interest from the Bucks. Yes, we did see that. But we go ahead. I just want to make that point. Like, we're not gonna come on, man.
No. So one thing about it, right? And I mean, I get like some of the Bucks fans have, like you mentioned, they either have love ties to these guys, or we kicking everybody down the top of the hill and letting them roll down there in the shopping cart and hoping they don't hit the bottom of the hill and stop, right? Is Bradley Beal better than AJ Green? I don't even think that's really the comparison, right? Like the real comparison, if you're looking at it as a Bucks fan, and we're only talking about this year here, we're not talking about the totality of their career, because Chris has never had that option where he can go to a mediocre to bad team and be the guy. So I don't know what he can be in that role. And sending him to Miami, wherever you're going to send him, he won't be in that role either. But the thing that you got to ask yourself is Chris Middleton better on this team, only on this team, than what Bradley Beal is? And for me, it's yes. And the reason why it's yes, Bradley Beal may be younger, may be just pound for pound a better basketball player right now, allegedly. But why it's better is because we talk about continuity, and getting that ball where Giannis once said ball, without having to blink your eye, that should have something to think about. The other thing is Chris may not be the best defensively, but I think he knows where his flaws are, and he knows the system well enough to say, hey, AJ, you should be here. Jackson Jr., you should be here. Brooke, be here. Bobby, be here, whatever the case may be. Beal's going to come in halfway through this year, have to learn a completely different offense and a completely different defense scheme. I don't know if he can do it and still compete at the highest level we want to compete at. I think we got a better shot to beat Boston or Cleveland with Chris Middleton on his team than without him on the team, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think a lot of these comments that I'm reading right here with our YouTube, Matthew Adlarge says he'd much prefer Beal's size, or Chris Middleton's size over Beal, right? Hutbomb says Gary Trent Jr. is 80% of Brad Beal. Now, I probably wouldn't go that far, but where I do agree with some of these chats, right? Like, you do appreciate having that wing that's 6'8", 6'7", whatever he is, that at least poses a threat to slower guard. If the matchup does present itself, that Chris Middleton can be out there and at least disrupt some shots with his size. But then, like, playing devil's advocate here, like, there are games where I've at least seen with my own eyes that Beal has turned up on the defensive end a little bit, right? Like, so it's a weird kind of thing when you factor in this whole Beal thing, because I don't know if I've seen enough of him, but I know that he would be able to help this team in some areas, but I just don't think it's the correct move to make, especially when we talk about, guys like Gary Trent, who could potentially kind of play that same role that a Beal would, just with lesser minutes. So yeah, I don't know. This is a trade that I probably didn't really want to happen, but like we said, could maybe talk yourself into it, and also glad it's not going to happen.
Chris, like you said, it's 6'7". But yeah, I just get to what does 6'7" matter if you can't move? Bobby's 6'10", and
wall up.
Don't matter what the hell he doing. Okay, you can wall. Another thing. I mean, if you can't move, and okay, you're 6'7". Hey, here, go lock up Jaylen Brown. I don't know how that works out.
Yeah, the athleticism is certainly something Beal has an advantage in. Like, there's no doubt about it. You're right when you say he looks healthy when you watch Brad Beal. But it's going to be, like you said, the backcourt with, Dame and Brad Beal. How much defense are you willing to sacrifice? Not that it's good anyway. Right. Not that it's really good anyway right now with it. But maybe when you're talking about trades, that there are maybe better moves that actually help your defense if you wanted to go there and that route. And you've seen some of the trades, like Pat Williams too. We don't even have on the the sidebar here, but that's another guy that would, I think, maybe you don't have to give up as much, and you can also get better right away. So.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move to, and our Earsign Golfer says, Gofar says Zach would be a nice third option. Lag says, yeah, Zach is a different story. And then let me see, who is it? Nick C says, one thing for certain, Middleton has to go if we want to win a championship this season, but not for Beal, for someone that makes sense roster wise. Let's talk about Zach LaVine. Let's go there. And again, I don't know I guess all the framework that would go into getting a Zach LaVine. I did see a lot of framework worked up that Bradley Beal that you could have done for Bradley Beal. I was really looking into some of that, and you would have. I think like one of the other guys that the Bucks would have got back potentially was that they were talking about was Kevin Love, which I wouldn't want Kevin Love either. But Zach LaVine, a little bit different of a player than Beal. I think he's different because he's having a really good year. Bradley Beal having probably one of his worst years since he's been, an all-star level player. For all the same reasons we talked about, does the analysis for you change if instead of Bradley Beal, it's Zach LaVine? We've seen Zach LaVine obviously for a while now, especially he's been in Chicago, division rival. Zach LaVine can heat it up at any moment, hit the three. Tons of athleticism, has had a little bit of injury history of his own. But from an athleticism standpoint, there's no question Zach LaVine has it. And again, you talk about, just an absolute lightning keg. Zach LaVine can at any moment give you 40. Does the analysis change if the rumor has been the Chicago Bulls, another team that's trying to get off guys. You talked about Pat Williams potentially. It sounds like they potentially want to give up Kobe White. So again, the Bulls are another team that look like they're selling. Does Zach LaVine change the analysis for you at all?
So out of the 3 or 4 wings that have been mentioned all throughout Twitter, I don't like Trey Middleton for any of them. But if I had to pick one, it would be LaVine. I think that the one thing about first of all, Zach can hoop. He's just straight up, and he a dog. And I think that with his game, with his ability to create his own shot and his ability to hit shots on the wing, if you walk away from that guy and leave him wide open on that 3-point line, it's usually cash money. His athleticism on both ends of the floor is a lot better than Middleton's ever has been in his career. I don't think that anyone would argue that, whether you're a Bucks homer or not. Another guy on the break with Giannis. And I think that when you bring in a guy like Zach, I think when you're watching Giannis hoop and you're watching this guy or that guy, Andre Jackson Jr., Gary Trent Jr., Torian Prince, when you're watching some of these guys pull up their shorts and play defense, I think that's going to make you play better defense, right? My thing is always going to be hesitant about, I would love to see that trade in the offseason if we had to do it, if this didn't work. However, I mean, the time may be now. So if we do it, Zach is going to have to learn on the fly and do it at a high level. So out of 3 or 4 guys, I wouldn't. That one would hurt the least. I don't want any parts of Jimmy gets suspended every other week. And I don't want any parts of, the best thing about Bradley Beal. Because, Bradley Beal's not a bum, like you said earlier. But, I mean, now the only good thing about him coming to Milwaukee is his fine wife sitting in the front row. Because the rest of that stuff from his game is washed like trash. But I saw it as a 4-team trade, but I don't think that 4-team trade would work because they're talking about, what was it, Butler going to Phoenix, Beal going to Chicago, and then us getting LaVine. I think that Beal would exercise that no trade clause. Why would he go to Chicago? He don't want to.
I agree. I agree on Beal going to Chicago. I also agree. I don't know why Chicago would want Beal. If Chicago's said they're trying to get off of people, why would you then bring on Bradley? That doesn't make sense to me unless a lot of the picks, because again, you remember Phoenix, and that's the other thing that's odd about this, Justin, is that Phoenix traded that 2031 first for a few picks coming back as if they had a move that they're ready to make. It's just odd that you trade a 2031 first that clearly is very valuable, which lets me know how valuable the Bucks 2031 first is, but they trade the 2031 first for picks and there's no move lined up. Like you would have thought maybe, okay, is the deal imminent? Do they have something, the framework really? It doesn't sound like they're very close on this deal.
Where I go with Zach LaVine in terms of just being, so invested in the Bucks these past couple of years and watching him, especially, once DeMar left, is that I know what I'm getting out of him more so than I do out of Brad Beal. I know what I'm getting from him offensively more so than I do with Brad Beal. And I would say that obviously Brad Beal is a third option now, but that didn't work as a third option in Phoenix. What makes us kind of think maybe it would work in Milwaukee where you have 2 ball-dominant players in Giannis and Dame. But I think where Zach LaVine's game is more suited for that is, yes, I think he can knock down open ones and be able to kind of, yes, have the ball in his hands at some points, but also just be able to be that kind of threat on the perimeter to where he maybe sometimes he's just catch and shoot guy, right? So I think I would change a little bit for Zach LaVine because I do think the athleticism is something that would just make this Bucks team, again, in transition, again, at the rim, just even more explosive and ways that they can beat you on offense. So I think I would be more welcoming for Zach LaVine than I would Brad Beal. But at this point, again, it's a situation where you've got Zach LaVine on a bad team and he's able to fill it up. How is he going to adjust as that third option? And those are all questions that would have to be answered very quickly when you're talking about a team that has, Dame and Giannis on it. So, yeah, I mean, look, Zach LaVine's a great player, great offensive game. The trajectory of his career about how he became this is certainly interesting and intriguing. But I don't know. I think, like I said, there are positions on this Bucks team that could benefit a lot more than just having a shooting guard on this team and going out and getting a shooting guard. I think where your real issues may be would be some of the bigs, the backup bigs, and if they're able to get somebody that can help guard these younger guys that get to the rim so often against this Bucks team. So yeah, I think there's maybe I don't think the Bucks are going to stand pat, but I think that there are moves to be made out there that the Bucks can find that you wouldn't have to give up as much. You can keep this, maybe you keep this thing together in terms of our big three, and then you make a move, one maybe a rotational piece, and maybe you're able to kind of ride it out.
And do the right thing says doesn't change anything. We need defense. LaVine be great if it's Drew, not Dame. Again, you guys, and this is my only thing. We're talking about it some from a fit perspective, which I totally get and understand. Talking about it from a fit perspective, I understand that doesn't change or help anything. My question, and I'm really talking to the chat here, is if you're telling me that Chris Middleton is not healthy enough to go 40 minutes, the change is an extra 15 to 20 minutes of basketball from your third best player. That's the change. That's what I'm getting at I think everybody's right. It's not about the fit. Like Chris Middleton, if you could guarantee me Chris Middleton, I said this before on this show. If you told me if you could guarantee me Chris Middleton was going to be last year's Chris Middleton in the playoffs, I would say, yeah, I'm not trading anybody for that guy. I want that guy. I just don't, again, I'm just telling you from what we've seen, and we are halfway through the season. We're about to be at 40. Are we about to be at 41 games? We got to be very close. We're about to be halfway through the season. I have not seen that guy, and you can't lie to yourself and tell you've seen him either. That guy that played in Indiana, that series in Indiana, has not been here. I've seen glimpses of the guy. I've seen that guy in Damian Lillard this season. You know what Giannis is bringing you. I have not seen that guy this entire half season. Again, some of it because he's been hurt, but again, he was supposed to be back and clear and healthy. He hasn't been that guy. That's what you're getting. So when you keep saying when this chat's saying, well, I don't see the difference from a fit perspective, sure, there is less fit. The question is, are you going to get 20 more minutes of an active player running around on the court and who's playing at 100% full speed and is not laboring and does not have the same, again, everybody has a risk of getting injured. That's just inherent. But I'm saying somebody that, is not, oh man, I don't know if I can make it. I have to preserve my body throughout the course of the game to make it to the final whistle. That is your real question when you talk about Chris Middleton to me.
Yeah, hopefully going forward, man, with him continuing to play, those ankles will get stronger, that mentality in his mind as far as it's going to get better. I think this was always going to be a slow drip with him that's going to eventually get better, that faucet's going to be open and running and full force by the time we get to these playoffs, man. And you know, I mean, the thing about it, man, sometimes the best defense is a better offense in this NBA. This isn't the 80s and the 90s where dudes are trying to hold you to 81 to 84 basketball games, right? So you got to outscore them too. The reason why we lost to the Miami Heat wasn't about defense. I know Jimmy Butler went crazy, but it's also because we couldn't get a bucket from anybody that wasn't named Giannis. And when he went down, we had no more options. And I'm cool on Patrick Williams too.
That's crazy.
I don't want that dude. That dude is a worse rebounder than Bobby Portis. He's a worse defender than Bobby Portis. And he don't shoot the ball as well. That dude don't play no defense.
He grabbed him fake rebound. He can't get the fake ones. He can't get the ones.
Hey,
the fake
let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question about fake rebounds. Because I saw Giannis in the game against Philadelphia. Wide open offensive rebound, dunks it back. That's a fake rebound?
No, he was attacking. Well, first of all, he was attacking the glass.
Let me ask you another question. Switch to another sport. Saquon Barkley, your running back savior, best offensive line in the league. So they open up a big hole for the dude. He run through it. Now my guy Josh Jacobs got to run through 13 defenders to get it. Is Saquon's a fake touchdown? Man, that fake rebound thing is the worst take in the history of basketball.
No, because if that was the case, who's the backup for Phil? Who's Philly's backup running back? And what's my man?
14. He runs them too.
Black. He don't run like Saquon. So again, clearly there's a difference. There's a difference between because they got the same offensive line. It don't look like that when Saquon not running through it. But go ahead.
No, I mean, to me, Trey, I think you bring up a good point when you talk about how these guys will maybe be able to – if Chris is only at that 20-minute mark for the rest of the season, the playoffs, this lineup is not going to be going as deep as it's going. It's not going to be this 11 deep sometimes that we see Doc Rivers just throwing guys out there. So I think you're exactly right when you bring up the fact that maybe these guys that are floating around, they might be able to give you – more minutes not only in the regular season but in the playoffs as well, and that's when you need your team to be at their best, and you're playing shorter lineups, or you're playing you're not going as deep in your bench. So yeah, I think that is a good point that I didn't really think about, and that some people I guess in the chat and that everybody needs to factor in that you might only go 9 deep, you might only go 8 deep some games. So yeah, I mean that's just a good point that I think a lot of people need to realize.
The Bucks won a championship, if you remember, going 7 deep at times in playing against Phoenix and in that Brooklyn series. They were a 7 deep team. You had your starting group. It was your starters, and then you had Bobby Portis coming off the bench, and who else got to come in off the bench? Maybe Pat and Pat Connaughton, I believe. I believe that was at a lot in some of those games. That was about it.
Yeah,
that was about it. So anyway, but yeah, I agree with the sentiment there. Let's talk about the depression a bit of Bucks fans and how people are about to crash out at all times, just based off any of these reports. And again, I just want to say this. I think people get upset whether you make moves. People are going to be upset whether you don't make a move. I've seen people in this chat, and this is one of the first times we've seen this, where people are. I've seen people saying that Bobby Portis is too valuable. A lot of times in our chat, you don't see a ton of that. Bobby Portis being too valuable to be traded, which I don't believe that at all. But yeah, I mean, it's just funny to me seeing some of the things that we see. And is there? I mean, I guess the thing is there what would appease Bucks? Is there anything that would appease Bucks fans? Like, you have some people who are true Chris haters, who are like, yo, Chris Middleton stinks, I can't do anything with him. Then you have some people who are like, some of those same people are like, well, I can't get Bradley. Nothing would make, I mean, that's my thing. Would anything make you happy? Can anything make the Bucks fans happy? Again, you have some people who come here every night. My guy Todd comes here all the time and DMs me on Twitter and tells me that the Bucks should blow it up. Get rid of Dame, get rid of Giannis, everybody. I see it from all over the place. Maybe all fan bases are like this. But again, it's so funny because I look at Phoenix Suns Twitter. I was looking at a bit of it, some of what their fans are saying today, and they're kind of like, blow it up, start it over. And it's like, do you not remember what things were like when you were a legitimately bad basketball team, when you weren't competing for anything? And I think people have to understand and realize, like, you want to compete. And so again, there's also a thing about, and we'll get into standing pat, and this can kind of go with all of us. Do you want to stand pat? Do you want to do nothing? And it's like, and another thing people keep talking about is like, oh, the future and these picks and that. I truly don't believe, if you're John Horst, if you're from, why are you concerned, or why would you be concerned? And I'm not saying at all with the future, but Giannis is 28. Was he 29? Did you turn 30? He just turned 30, right?
He's 29.
Or you just turned 20? Oh, he'll be 30 next year.
30. He's 30.
He's 30. He'll be 31 next year. Why would you be concerned with anything but winning a title? I don't get it. I just don't get it. And again, maybe that's true because that's why they picked AJ Johnson. I don't know. But you have to be gunning, in my opinion, for a title this year. The window is not open. And again, going back to Chris, said it before. If you get out in the first, second round, everybody talking about, oh, Chris is so valuable in the fit. I promise you, he'll be gone next year. I promise you. I promise you, Chris Middleton will not be in a Milwaukee Bucks uniform if they're out in the first, second round this year. Because it'll be proven that this group cannot win. So it's almost like we got to see it one more time. And that's why the next time we talk about making a move or staying pat, I mean, how many times we want to look at it and go and give this? It was the definition of insanity.
The same thing over and over again, same results.
And doing the same thing, expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. There's no way you can run this group out again and say, okay, let's try it one more time. I just couldn't do that. And again, if you do and it doesn't work, Horst is going to be fired. And a lot of guys that you're talking about that are so valuable, they'll be gone anyway.
Yeah, so going to Bucks Twitter and a lot of people that follow y'all and follow me, there is no making them happy. They're some of the most depressed fans I've ever seen in my life. Like, I watch some of the dudes that interact with our guy from Buzz Boys, the Hornets dude, and they suck. And they're not happy with it, but we're the only fan base that puts this much effort and attention into a dude like Bobby Portis, who's your ninth option on the team. That's where all our focus goes to. Now, we'll have another dude like Rollins. He'll trip over his own feet, throw the ball out of bounds. Oh, man, he's young. He just got to do better. Look, all basketball players make bad plays, and all of them make good plays. Our fan base is the only one where Bobby will have a good game, and they'll come in here, oh, man, well, this wasn't good enough, that wasn't good enough. Giannis will miss a layup. Oh, well, he's the best player on earth, so we're going to overlook it. No, we're not. Giannis is the best player on earth, and he's supposed to make that. And you ask that man, GA, he'll tell you he should have made it. And that's why I like him so much, because he never runs from the smoke. But Bucks fans, we trade Chris, we trade Bobby. and we bring in, who you want to bring in? Pat Williams, Obi Toppin in, this sorry big here, that sorry big here. That dude averages 9 points a game. That's he went to Florida State. He can't hoop. You bring in some dudes like that, then Patrick Williams will be the problem. Then it'll be Obi Toppin is a problem. Then it'll be insert dude here is going to be the problem. Bucks fans will never be happy. Even when we won the championship, there were dudes that weren't happy with that. Oh, man, Justin Jackson this, Jeff Teague this. Hey, man, lose enough years in your life for an NBA team, and you'll be happy with a good basketball team. We ain't going to make these people happy, man.
I got to return one thing here. You talk, because, again, it's funny because clearly the people on Twitter, people that go to the games are on totally different spectrums because I don't understand this. You talk about Bobby Portis. Hold on, because I gotta push back. You talk about Bobby Portis and how every time Bobby Portis does it, they all mad about Portis. I watched this man lose a ball on his own and then commit an intentional foul, and the crowd chanted Bobby, Bobby, Bobby off one of the stupidest plays I saw in that game against Philly, and they sitting there. I couldn't believe what I heard as it came through the television. That I don't know how many people there, 19,000, whatever the capacity of Fiserv, they're chanting Bobby's name after a bonehead play. So I see what you said. I know what we do see a lot on Twitter, but man, there's a group out there that goes to games and they go specifically to say Bobby. When can I say Bobby? And it's infuriating.
Chris, let me say one thing. My bad. So yeah, you're right that the people, but there's a thought behind that, and maybe the crowd is trying to get him up to play better. I'll give you another example. Let's go to baseball for a second. One second. My bad. We going around the world now. So Philadelphia, the worst people on earth, scum of the scum, worst fan bases on the earth. Shout out to Coach RJ. He fits in well.
Turner.
Yeah, Trey Turner. That's exactly where I'm going. That dude was god awful terrible. And you know what them fans did? Instead of doing what half of Twitter does for Bobby Portis, they cheered that dude. And you know what? That dude got the confidence, and he finished the year a lot better than what he could have. So, maybe there's some positivity for some of those people that go there that want the guy to play better. Does he make bonehead plays? Absolutely he does. Andre Jackson Jr. does it. Giannis does it. Dame does it. Everybody collectively on our team does it. It's okay.
Before you go, Chris, one thing, do the right thing. And I've seen this a couple times in the chat, people asking about Herb. He's out. He's out. The Herb Jones is not playing right now. He's injured, but go ahead.
I'd take a flyer on him in the offseason, though. I would.
Sure.
Yeah, to me, this is a situation where, I'd logged in on Twitter and I saw all the people that was on Trey's head and people that I saw just, they are ready to burn the house down if Chris Middleton is traded. And maybe not even so much Brad Beal, but just anyway. And I'm like, okay, it should be time that at this point, yes, I understand I don't want to get clipped and put on another YouTube channel, but with Chris Middleton, yes, I know he was great last year. I understand. We all watched the same thing. He was great last year in the playoffs. He really was on and off again in the regular season, but that's another conversation because he did it again this year. At what point are we going to be able to just let go of some of this nostalgia? At what point are we going to be able to be like, okay, we won one, yes. Nobody's taking that for granted. Nobody is downplaying that we won a title with this group or with the majority of this group. I mean, a lot of those guys are gone now, but I just don't get it. I don't get why people aren't ready to move past. Why are people complacent with one title when you have the best player in the league, when you have the best two-way guy for years now? So it's not so much individual players to me as much as it is Milwaukee Bucks success. We all want the Bucks to be great. We want the Bucks to win the championship from here on out. From here until the wheels fall off and we're all old men sitting here and watching a rebuild, right? So we want, for everybody in the chat, we want the Bucks to win. We want the Milwaukee Bucks to be good. And I don't know that this team, especially after watching those first, that 3-11 start, I don't know if this Bucks team can reach those goals if you continue to hold on to these guys. So again, that'll kind of tie into what we were going to talk about for the next topic with them doing nothing. But like, I just don't get the overreaction to rumors. First of all, they're rumors. It's not anything set in stone right now. But to be like super upset at the idea of even trading some of these guys, I think it's wrong. I think you're putting your interests first instead of the Milwaukee Bucks interests, because we've seen how this thing has flamed out for years on years on years now.
I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, again, this gets it's part of the nostalgia, kind of thing. Again, first person who was okay with the Drew Holiday thing. Hey, sign me up. I was fine with it.
And Dame is going to be great. Dame has been great for us already. Like, it's been a small sample size,
right?
And he didn't get to play with Giannis, but that has turned out to be a decent move. So, and more than decent.
And it was the correct move when it happened. It was the correct move. And I think people, and then you get into, this is Drew Holiday. Yeah, he went to Boston, and that's fine. But again, you're talking about what the Bucks need to do, and you just can't hold on to guys for nostalgia purposes. And again, I know it's people, DJ Drew, Bobby Portis is the last of our pro. I'm telling you, because you keep talking about, the eighth and ninth, whatever you want to say. This is a top-heavy team. They're going to play 7. Bobby is the first guy off the bench, unless you want to say Chris is whenever you get him going full speed, if he continues to come off the bench. And we don't know that to be true either. But everybody that plays is going to have to be that much more locked in. Because, again, you're playing a guy, Andre Jackson Jr., who can't play offense at all. You're playing an AJ Green young and, little Green. I don't know how he's going to perform in the playoffs under that pressure. We know his defense, again, he plays good on-ball defense, but he's 100% a fouler. Brook Lopez, there are matchups. If Brook Lopez is still on this team, there are matchups that Brook Lopez is not going to be able to do well in at all. I think about the New York Knicks series all the time, and I think New York Knicks are a great team. I say great relative by any stretch of imagination. That's not going to be a good series for Brook Lopez. That is not going to be his series, because he will be in a world of trouble against a card. He just can't guard. He cannot defend a stretch big like that. That is going to be a series where Brook Lopez probably plays 20 minutes a night, 25 minutes. And if he does, and if he's playing well, that means he's going to be hitting a ton of threes. That's the only, again, it goes back to the Bobby Portis thing where, if he's hitting shots, I can handle you not playing as well defense if you're hitting shots. It's not as bad. But when you are 3 for 10, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work as well. But again, that's why I get into this whole piece about and we go stand and pat and you've got to explore some of these things, because again, as we go into it, and I'll say it again, I do not believe this team is currently constructed can win a championship. I guess, and again, I preface, you can, it's possible. It is highly unlikely. Like Dame and Giannis going crazy, yeah, you can win a championship. You can. But it is highly unlikely that this group, as currently constructed, can do that. I just think that they have too many holes in the roster to be a top-heavy team and do that.
Well, also, to your point, how willing are you Bucks fans to find out if this team can make it? How willing are you to go out on your sleeve and be like, if I told you today that the Bucks will lose again and not make the championship, maybe not even make the Eastern Conference Finals, you would 100% say, damn, we really should have made that move. We really should have just tried something else. We shouldn't have ran it back with this same group, because that's kind of how it's gone these past couple of years. So I don't think, if I told you guys right now, obviously this is, kind of a interesting hypothetical, but to me, like the reaction is going to be bad if they don't win it, and it's going to circle back all the way to these conversations we're having right now.
And I go back one more. Nick C says, I'd trade Chris for Drew in a heartbeat. I know he's not good offensively in Boston, but he's probably the most reliable player we could ever get. But hey, what's crazy? And Justin, you're shaking your head. Again, there's a reason that it was Drew Holiday that got the deal done for Damian Lillard. I don't know that he's necessarily wrong at this point, just because he can't move. Yeah, so if you gave me yes, this team, if it was Dame and Drew and I do agree that's how. But again, without Drew going for Dame, there is no Dame. I don't think you get the same thing with Portland. I don't think it happens if you try to move Chris. That's why this is so hard as is. But go ahead.
Well, I think that at the time, if you could have did it with a fully healthy Chris Middleton and a fully healthy Drew Holiday coming off that playoff performance that he had against the Miami Heat, and I'm not even talking about the fact that Jimmy Butler owned him in the Pfizer. I'm just talking about his lack of ability to put the ball in the bucket. I still make that trade 100 times with that dude Skeleton 21 threw me off with that.
I don't know what that means.
He's saying to my point that they're not running anything back because Giannis wasn't healthy. But that doesn't make sense because the guys around Giannis should have been able to beat the Pacers last year, I would say. Like,
well, maybe
they had some opportunities to do that.
And maybe if Dame was healthy, they would have. But
the supporting cast just isn't good enough anyway. I mean, you talk about we didn't have Chris in that one Celtics series where it was right before the Eastern Conference Finals. But like the supporting cast was just not cutting it then, and it still, I would argue, hasn't been now. So we're not talking about making a monumental move in trading a Dame or Giannis. We're talking about most of our role players and then maybe Chris Middleton.
And again, Skeleton saying we'll run it back because Giannis was healthy in the playoffs 2 years for last 2 seasons. Again, everything we talk about, you're still not running back the same team because that was Chris Middleton on 2 ankles ago. If you told me his ankles were fine, I think my analysis would be different. I'm not convinced based on what I've seen that I'm getting a fully healthy. I'm not convinced that I got a guy that can go 40 minutes in the playoffs. I haven't seen it. I think the fit is there. I don't know that I've seen a guy that is capable of doing what we need to do. Maybe he will. And again, I'll be the biggest supporter if he does it. I just don't know that. I don't know that. Again, the question is, are you willing to take that risk? Are you willing to, what are you more willing to gamble? The fact that he's going to be able to give you the minutes that you need him to give you? Or are you willing to gamble it on, like you say, Justin, bringing somebody else in and having them have to learn it? Because you're right. There are chemistry issues you got to learn. But the likelihood that person can play at 100% is more likely than Chris Middleton can play at 100%. Listen, I already know. Again, I know this for a fact because Chris Middleton, his 100% is no longer his 100%. He's 70%, if that, of 100%. He is not able. He's like an old car. You can push it to the metal. It's not gonna work like it did when you first bought it. He don't have it. That's all I'm saying. The fifth gear is not there. So you're playing with the guy who's 70% of himself as is right now. And again, maybe that's enough. I don't know, but you got to be able to turn it on in the playoffs. And it remains to be seen whether he can.
Well, hopefully he keeps getting, like I said before, hopefully he keeps getting healthy. If I'm going to trade it for any of those wings that were mentioned, and I think I said this previously, it's LaVine, because you can not only win right now with them, but that's a move to help you win for the future. Contrary to what half of Twitter thinks and all that stuff, I'm not opposed to trading Bobby. I'm not opposed to trading Brooke. I'm not opposed to trading anyone. It got to be the right fit. Not these old kick a can down the road bum dudes on this bench, that bench, Larry Nance Jr., Patrick Williams, Obi Top. No, we messed up when we didn't trade him for, what's the boy name from Charlotte that went out to Phoenix? Richards?
Yeah.
Now, if you would have traded Bobby for him or Brooke for him, that is a smart move. That kid is young. He can hoop. And he can do everything offensively and defensively to the same level, and he's going to grow even better than what Bobby's career would have been. And I'd have been cool with that. But look, I think we're all saying the same thing. We got different takes on guys we like, we don't like, whatever the case may be. But I think I can speak for the three of us and JT as well, and probably 95% of you Bucks fans in the chat. I can't speak for y'all 12% on Twitter. We root for the front of the jersey, though. The front. So even if Giannis leaves and we got 7 dudes and we win a championship and he left, I'm still gonna be a Bucks fan. Like, dog, I seen Fred Roberts hoop. I seen goddarn I can't even think of Blue Edwards, Lee Mayberry. Like, I could give you obscure Buck after obscure Buck. We ain't going nowhere. None of the 4 of us. But we gotta get better. I think so. But it's last point on standing pat, man. I think it's irony that we're talking about standing pat. Because I think, love Pat Connaughton to death for what he did during the playoff runs and stuff like that. But we financially have to move him. There's no question about it. We got to get under that second apron, and then we'll see what Mr. Horst does with it.
Yeah, that's going to be, like I said, the first indicator that something has happened or changed is if the Bucks can get out of Pat Connaughton's Pat Connaughton's contract, like you said, to get under that second apron, and then you can the moves that are available to you will start to veil themselves. Let's go to Twitter, see what Twitter had to say. Big Wallace says, "Don't understand the reason for the cancellation. Bucks are already there. It's an indoor game, or the Pelicans stuck somewhere." No, I think again that was, and I mentioned on Twitter, I think that's more about the service workers and the fans trying to get into the arena more so than the teams.
Those roads aren't safe. Like we're thinking about it from, like my boy Chris King said, from a Midwest standpoint, right? It snowed, and then it's getting colder, and everything that melts is going to freeze over. They don't have plows and salt the way that we do in North Carolina. Definitely not how they have it in the Midwest.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. This is unprecedented for them. Yeah. You gonna say something, Chris?
No, I mean, I will just allow you to just kind of continue with the Twitter stuff, but I do think there's some more stuff to be said about Stan and Pat, just because we had the other Pat at the trade deadline, and that was it last year. So I think we can kind of expand on that a little more as well.
Yeah, Pat Bev. Yeah, and the other thing that's going to happen too, before me, is because people were talking about this. Ryan Rollins will get converted to a standard contract. Now, I believe the Bucks are going to have to. I'm not sure. I believe they have to let somebody go to do that. Which again, another guy that could be up for going somewhere. Maybe he's a throw-in somewhere. DeLon Wright. Again, another guy that the Bucks aren't using. Marjan Beauchamp, another guy the Bucks aren't using. We'll see what happens, but I think you're going to have that. No matter what the Bucks do. They got to do something because Ryan Rollins got to get converted to a standard contract. Keep it going. At BSD Gazelle says, time to shake shit up, LFG. So he's ready for a trade. Says, let's do it. Armel 53 says, I'm not interested in either Beal, Jimmy, or LaVine. Not necessarily against trading Chris, but not for people who are more expensive and just as injured. We do need to trade Bob for another center at almost any cost. So again, you see that's the common refrain there. But again, here's where I keep going at, and this is why we go back to Bucks Twitter. We be happy with anything. Listen to what this guy says. He says, not against trading Chris, but not for people who are more expensive and just as injured. Who do you think you're going to get that is less expensive than Chris, that is probably younger, that is probably a little bit better, or at least the same? I'm going to go better. Same level as Chris, less expensive, younger, and not injured. What magical player do you think is out there that is like, hey, we'll give you this guy for your guy who is all of the things that you just named? Why would that exist? That's all I'm saying. Like, I just think about that before you go, I wouldn't trade Chris. And that's the other thing that goes back, oh my God, about the depression of Bucks fans. And who do you think you are? Who do you think you are that you just, well, then no, you on Tinder swiping. No. What do you think you look? What do you think Chris Middleton looks like? Like, do you think he out there at 25, step back tween Hezzy to the basket? What do you think? Who do you think this guy is? Nah, we don't need. We good. I look at what are we talking about? That's all I get to. Like when you talk about trade. So if that's the case, just say, hey, no, I don't want to trade Chris Middleton. Say that. I'd rather you say that than I would trade him. But I need this. Who I need for him. Like again, put yourself in the shoes of the other GM of the other teams and tell me if you go. Yeah, I want him. I'll send you. Again, let's say Herb Jones was healthy. Yeah, take Herb Jones and give us Chris Middleton. Yeah, I can't wait for that. Who would do that? It doesn't make sense.
You think it's any credence with one of those Cam boys in Brooklyn to come over for Middleton or no?
No, it's the same thing. Why the hell would Brooklyn? Why would they do that? Like, why would? And it's other thing. We don't have enough picks to really do anything with that. Again, we have the 2031 first. Would you give a 2031 first up for Cam Johnson? I don't know that I would. For Christmas, I don't know. I don't know that maybe. And that's the other thing. I don't know that he's a needle mover. I don't know. I mean, I think it helps. I think it gives you. Again, to me, because here's where I am again on the season. You can't win a championship as currently constructed. I think a trade helps you get to, hey, that we're legit contender, and we can't. I don't think it makes us, oh yeah, we're the best in the East. Can't nobody stop us. I don't think Cam Johnson does that at all. So would you give up the only real asset you have, 2031 first round, for Cam Johnson and send out Chris? I don't know that that's something that I'll be participating in.
No, and you look at well, sorry, Justin, but you look at the teams who are potentially suitors for him, and they have the packages to do that, right? You talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are the favorite to land him if he is moved. You talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder, if they're they those type of teams, right? They have the packages to do that. We don't at this point. We really don't. So these names that everybody's kind of just magically floating around like we can just get them easily, it's just not going to happen that way. And really, the only guys you're looking at are guys like I saw in the chat. Rob Williams, because of his injury history, is a guy that you may land because it is also taking a flyer with some of the injury history he's dealt with. Herb Jones now at this point, you may be able to make something shake in the offseason. You're not going to want him now, but if New Orleans is not confident in his full-term health, then you may be able to take that kind of flyer. Those are the guys that we're looking at. It's not the guys that everybody wants in their dream scenario. It's just it can't be with how old these guys are and how little value they have to teams that are on the rise in terms of age and young guys all around and building something special. There's just not many suitors out there for guys like Chris Middleton and guys like maybe even Bobby at this point, who's almost touching 30 now.
Yeah, I think like everybody, depending on what area you grew up in, you want a Halle Berry for a wife, you want a Beyonce, you want to insert supermodel here. And this is like Bucks Twitter. Hey, man, you might have to settle for that 7 and 8, and that's okay because she's still pretty and she's still the baddest thing walking this planet, right? That's JT with the dating advice tonight. What about Big Bob if we're going to do this Robert Williams thing, and I hate that too. But what about if we're going to do Big Bob or Brookie and Middleton to Portland for Chris King's favorite guy, Robert Williams, and Jeremy Grant? Y'all got any interest in that?
What's Jeremy Grant's injury status? I don't watch Portland.
I think he had something like eye contusion or something. 3 games out. Sorry, Chris.
Okay.
You're right. Yeah. I mean, so that is obviously something you're going to have to look at because, again, a bad team, a team that you're not really watching all the time because they're on the West Coast. But, I mean, you look at it and you say, okay, maybe Brooke, maybe Mitty, and you go get a Jeremy Grant and you go get somebody else. Like, for me, I do believe that these are some guys that could move the needle a little bit, right? Like these are some guys that change up the team. They change up the way this team looks. And really, what's most important to me would just be getting off some of these older players that the Bucks have, right? Like these are guys who I don't know how old's Grant, probably 30. Yeah, 30. So it's not like a crazy get younger type deal, but it is a guy who maybe extends the title window longer than a Brook would, longer than a Hurt Middleton would. So, I mean, those are all options that, I mean, I certainly would be – I mean, I would be happy with maybe if you make that kind of trade. But, again, I'm going to trust John Horst's judgment. We know him to be a guy who's been aggressive, and maybe not at the deadline last year, but a guy who has tried to make some of these moves. When you talk about getting P.J. Tucker at the deadline in the finals year and guys like that, like – and then in the offseason with Dame, like this, we're just going to have to trust and kind of see which way this thing goes as long as they don't stand pat and as long as they're not really going out on a limb and trying to trade somebody just to acquire a guy that can play for the rest of the season and then ultimately goes to Israel. That's not what I'm looking for anymore. I'm looking for guys that could potentially stay Bucks for a couple years.
Yeah, I'm just looking. I haven't watched a ton of Portland, but I'm looking at the numbers on, and I've never been a huge Jeremy Griffin. I'm looking at the numbers. It's just 15 points a night on 38% shooting.
All right.
Yeah, but he does provide the defense and what you're kind of looking for, though, in terms.
And that's the same question Nick sees that. Is he still? Again, I admittedly have not watched a ton of him since he's gotten since he's been in Portland. But has he? I mean, is he still playing at that level? I know, again, before he got there, you look at his numbers when he was in Detroit, maybe the first year or two in Portland, they looked pretty good. This year he's fallen off considerably. But yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't know if he's still giving you that elite defense or what or what's going on. Quick Drama Ross says, I don't believe new ownership group is extending any of these old players. I would not be surprised at all if that's the case too. Again, it makes you wonder who's who's calling shots here. Is it and that's the other thing where a lot of things could change. If Jimmy Haslam decides, hey, no, this is what we're doing, that's interesting. But again, I go back to Robert Williams. Yeah, I would. That's another guy who, I like it. I like it in theory. Another guy that has to stay healthy, and it's a risk, it's a gamble. But in theory, he fits as far as from a defensive standpoint, and some of the things he could do and make you a little more versatile in Milwaukee.
So Evan Sidri, I guess he's a Portland beat reporter or whatever. He said that the Lakers already have an interest in a package on the table. It's Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, Vanderbilt, and Jalen Hood Scalfino. And that would take care of Robert Williams and Jeremy Grant to the Lakers. But Portland is also asking for first-round capital in return in that trade, which we don't have. And then he also said in his article that Simmons might be on the market, and also DeAndre Ayton. I say the only thing about Grant where his production has fell off a little bit is because Anthony's shooting that ball. He going to get all the shots. So there's not as many basketballs on the court that he can get to. So can this guy cook in a third option as well?
I will say, from what I've seen at least, and, we're getting some insight, DD for 3 in the Twitter chat says we don't want Grant, can't rebound, and not a good defender, would love Rob Will. But to me, I think Jeremy Grant's offensive ceiling is actually pretty high. And so if you brought him in maybe as a third option and you've got him in that role, he can shoot the basketball decently well from what I've seen. At least it looks good. And there's been games where he's kind of taken over, even with having those guys Scoot and, Anthony Simons and maybe Shaden Sharp last year. Like, those guys take a lot of shots away from him. But I do think, he does have some capability offensively. But, yeah, I mean, when we talk about Rob, again, he is always injured. But the thing is, who else can you get realistically that fills that defensive role at the 5 spot that you're able to acquire? Like, they're first of all, bigs are at a premium anyway. And so if you can get a guy who maybe does have some injury history, you're banking on him to stay healthy, but that's also the upside of maybe being able to even acquire somebody like that and get younger.
And then, like I said, just going back to this entire, injury history and guys that magnitude. Again, that's what you're looking at with the Bucks right now, is that they have guys that have been injured. And again, you talk about injuries. Again, why the Bucks not been out of first round the last couple of years because of injuries. So again, it's going to be a gamble. You're trading away guys and you're trying to get better. You'll see if it works. Quick Draw McGraw says Jimmy Haslam doesn't owe Chris anything. Mm-hmm. He only knows the current version of Middleton, the guy who plays 20, 25 minutes for about 40, 50 games. Why would he want to pay Chris? And I think that's your question too about Chris Middleton is. And here's the thing, though, moving forward, when you talk about Chris Middleton and where he goes and what it looks like with the Bucks, is he a guy? Is he, or could he be a guy where down the line, could he be a guy, because he has another 30-some million coming to him? Let's say he stays more. Let's say he has a good postseason. Could you potentially? Do you think he would take let me ask this. Do you think he'd take a hometown discount to give to and maybe say, okay, I'll go down to 14, 15 million a year. If you give me a 3-year deal, 2 years in a player option, and I got another 3 years in me, but I want 15 per. I won't take 30 some, whatever, and it gives you some. Could again, that could happen too. Again, all these things on the table. I don't know. I could see that happening if he stays and he plays well. But again, all of it they're all risk. But again, he has to play well in the playoffs if he's going to stay in Milwaukee. We'll see. Like I said, it remains to be seen if that happens. And Brogdon stinks, man. I don't know.
A hometown discount. I mean, I don't see it as a stretch. What I really hope that happens is I hope we win the championship this year and Chris retires. And just retires a Buck forever.
Damn.
And I'm only saying that because of his injury history. Like he's not there for the complete season. So first of all, Chris's contract is not bad. When you look at the way the collective bargaining agreements have went, when you look at the way salaries have went up, it's a pretty mid-tier contract right now. I think, what is Patrick Williams? Isn't he 3 years, 45, 90 million or something like that? Well,
Yeah, it comes out to, it comes out to 18 million a year, which again, Chris Miller's making 30 something million a year. Comes out to I think it's like 5 years, 90 million, comes out to like 18 million a year. And to me, again, people thought that was a bad deal. I don't think it is. 18 million a year for a guy who can play defense and shoots a 3 to 40%, 40% for his career. Low volume, but he shoots at 40% for his career. He's gonna get more open shots in Milwaukee than he ever would. And that's the thing that I think people have to think about, even when you're talking about trading a Beal, talking about trading a LaVine, talking about trading. It is, don't tell me what they did, Bradley Beal. Don't tell me what he did in Phoenix. That ain't playing with Giannis. Playing with Booker and KD is not playing with Giannis. That I think about all the guys coming and look at Malcolm Brogdon. Brogdon don't look the same. He didn't look the same in Boston. Don't look the same in Portland. It didn't look the same in Indiana. Playing with Giannis is a different story. So people always tell me, well, look what he's doing here. That's fine. It's much different when you got him in Milwaukee. That's all I'm saying. Giannis is a floor raiser to me for other guys.
Yep, no, for sure. And I mean, all these guys, and it's even more proof in the pudding when you see a guy like Malik Beasley, Taurean Prince come here from the Lakers who couldn't make a shot in LA, and now look at them, they're knocking them down. Hey, one thing that we said earlier though, I think that if we could, and I know we can't do this. This is like Chris's thing. If you could forecast it and see that we win the championship, but I think if you could rewind back to last year, we put this same exact team. You remove Dame for 2 games, and Giannis misses the first round. I think this team currently constructed could beat that Indiana Pacers team from last year.
Yeah. I agree with that. Yeah,
I think Gary Trent he's a super upgrade over Malik Beasley. And I mean, the real problem we're going to have is in this offseason, how do we keep Gary Trent on his team, knowing that we have a Middleton player option looming if he's not traded? All types of things to think about in this offseason.
Oh,
absolutely.
Man, that's a good point. And then I'll also say, I have been very impressed and happy with what John Horst was able to do last offseason when we really didn't know, outside of keeping some of the guys that maybe we could have moved off of, we could have traded in the offseason and they didn't do it. But, to get Gary Trent Jr. and to get Taurean Prince on those minimums and stuff like that, I love that. That's awesome. That's what you want out of your GM. Now, in terms of, do I still think this team is good enough to win a championship? I don't know, because my mind keeps going back to the way that they started this thing. And I get it, guys, you have to get adjusted. But the inconsistency that we've seen take place, it happened last year. It wasn't just a this year thing. Last year, we saw a loss to the Portland Trail Blazers on national television. Last year, we probably saw a couple bad losses that we shouldn't have taken. Yes, it is the NBA that happens. But remember, we brought in Doc, we were 17-21, right? So, and the career record just with the Milwaukee Bucks has not been that great anyway. So, do I think that this Bucks team can stay with just this group right now? I don't think so. I do think there's a little bit of, hey, if we can get younger, maybe we need to do it now so that the value in some of these guys, the little value they have left, doesn't depreciate all the way to where now we're in the offseason. We're like, well, here we go with another season of 34-year-old Chris now and 36-year-old, stuff like that. So I would just think as a Bucks fan that there are moves to be made and that will be made.
Yeah, no, and I'll say this too about Horst. John Horst has always done the thing that came out of nowhere. So all the noise around Bradley Beal and Zach LaVine and these guys, every time it came out of nowhere. The Bucks were nowhere in the discussions on Damian Lillard. Boom, you pop up with Damian Lillard and trading Drew Holiday. I think about I don't remember if there was talked about with the PJ Tucker and how the Bucks swooped in and got him. I don't remember much talk about Jay Crowder and the Bucks went and got him. I don't remember her talk about in the offseason the Bucks are interested in Gary Trent Jr. and the Bucks went. So I feel like a lot. John Horst is it's the move that you haven't heard about that is going to be seen. Quick Draw McGraw asking about LaVine's shooting numbers at 51%, 45% from the three, 80% from the free throw line. What is there to think about? And again, volume is good. Let me tell you, volume's coming down. The shots he gets in Chicago, he's not going to take them same shots. He's just not getting to get. He's playing by himself out there with Kobe White and the boys in Chicago. You're not about to get those shots coming in Milwaukee. So I'll say that. And again, what is there to think about? It's a defensive impact. It's and I think it's a playmaking thing. It's about Chris Middleton. Again, the synergy between him and Giannis is real. That's the thing. Going back to Twitter, at Drew Barron just says, I don't think the Bucks will do anything other than move Connaughton, which is fine. Beal will tank whatever remaining window this franchise has. Monoquar says Bucks need to stay far away from the Heat Suns trade. Neither LaVine, Butler, or Beal help them whatsoever because they solve none of the problems we have. Main one being matchup versatility. Shedding Pat and moving Bobby are the only things that need to happen. And then I'll do one more at JRETM says, if I'm Horse, I'm only trading 22 to Chris Middleton West or to a non-playoff East team. I'm not taking the chances of Spo unlocking a masterclass from him against us. Retaining him will keep 34 happy too. Just turn him into a 25-minute bench contributor. You brought in your coach to figure that stuff out. Again, that's what I'm saying. 25 minutes in the regular season, fine. I can't have my third guy be 25 minutes a night in the playoffs. That's the only thing that you just can't get down with that at all. Anything final you guys wanna get at? Man, we said we wasn't gonna go long, and we did 85 minutes already on trade talk and a bunch of rumors and just us kind of shooting the shit here about the Bucks in lieu of a postponed game. But anything else you guys want to get to or talk about?
Hey, so last thing I say, man, is I disagree with a lot of y'all, even these two nice gentlemen on the show. Sometimes, but one thing I'm not gonna do is I'm not gonna tell you how to fan. So if you want to blow it up, if you want to keep Chris, if you want to trade Bobby, if you want to trade Brooke, if you want to trade Giannis, that's your thing. But only thing I could tell you, I'd have sat through a hell of a lot of losing in the Bradley Center and the Mecca and we didn't really lose too much in the Pfizer, but everywhere else. And I think one thing as Bucks fans, what we should try to do is whoever we trade, I'm the biggest supporter of Bobby on this show. And if we trade him for that boy with the birthmark in his braids, then I'm going to root for that boy like he's Bobby.
Yeah, I would say, listen, guys, I appreciate you guys pulling up for this, especially because, we had the postponed game. This was a last-minute kind of decision for us. And all the banner is good banner. We're not against any of you guys. We appreciate all of the points you raise and the disagreements. We enjoy that. It all makes for good content. It all makes for good fun. And so we appreciate you guys pulling up and tuning into this. And I'm sure there will be more of this, right? Like it's not even close to the trade deadline yet. I mean, a couple weeks or whatever it is now, but there's going to be a lot of content coming your way about what the Bucks do or do not do. So just appreciate you guys, keeping up with us and tuning in for that as well. So, yeah, I mean, this is going to be out of our hands. This is just kind of three Bucks fans just talking about maybe what's to come or what's not to come. So, we appreciate you guys tuning in.
Absolutely appreciate it, opportunity. And I don't mind. I'll tell you how to fan. Stop screaming Bobby after he turned the ball over and then fouls people on in the open court. I don't care. Again, absolutely appreciate you. Want to thank our sponsors, Curler's Waterfront Sports Bar and Grill. Head out there, especially if there's a game. Head out there anyway. Get yourself some good food, good eats, and some good cold drinks. But especially tomorrow, if the Bucks are playing, because it will be a TNT game. $3 bottles and pints. What's up, Justin?
I'm just going to say, I think Curly's need to have them $3 joints regardless if the game get canceled because that's outside of our control. Go ahead and put them out there, Curly. Chris King's credit card on the line.
There you go. All of that. But yeah, man, again, we do want to appreciate everybody for pulling up. Good crowd in here tonight as we went about an hour and a half talking Bucks impromptu. Let's see what happens. Hopefully the Bucks play tomorrow. And yeah, they're definitely, again, that's what last thing I'll leave you with. Expect the unexpected. That's what I think will happen with this Bucks team. I expect something that we are not talking about.
Yeah, there may be
that's
a name
the move is going to be made.
There may be a name that we didn't even address, didn't even think about, and then all of a sudden he's playing for the Bucks in a month. So that's what you deal with in the NBA. Absolutely.
So it's going to be fun. We'll have more discussions like this. Danny Levin, cap expert. NBA front office expert will be with us February the 3rd. So pencil your calendar, circle your calendars, all that. We'll have him on for our kind of a trade deadline kind of show. He'll be in with us. Hopefully, who knows? The Bucks may have made a move by then, maybe they won't. But we'll see. We'll talk with him about everything trade deadline and things that, again, because the thinking about the first and second apron. It's all confusing. There's a lot of stuff, so we'll have him clear up some questions. If anybody has any, he'll be on the money with that. Again, appreciate everybody for joining us. Thank you in the chat. If you like the show, send us a like, tell a friend, and always pull up. And then, hey, as well, if you could, please help us out a tremendous bit if you will follow, like, subscribe, all that good stuff to the Cream City crossover. Tell a friend to tell a friend about the Cream City crossover. Again, that's all we could do tonight for you, man. Appreciate everybody for joining us. And this has been a Cream City Media Group production from the Guru Trey Crosby III.
Chris King.
Justin.
If I am the enemy, it's only because I did. To tell you the truth, don't take no wood nickels. Wow, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 54 points tonight. Whew.
How many free throws? 30?
I don't know. He's having a hell of a year. Yeah. He's having a hell of a year, really pushing his MVP case. Which before I go, I say this about Shai. Shai, it was interesting because if you would have looked at his stat line like last year, it was a lot of like 30. He was very consistent. 30 points a night is great. But like the superstars on certain nights give you 40, give you 50. When you get to play, it's 45. You see 40s mixed in there. You see 36, 37. You see guys elevate. And I never really saw that from Shai. It was always a consistent, I can get you 30. And I will say a difference. I know he's having an MVP momentum and deservedly so. But what I've seen this year from him, except for the NBA Cup, was, is this ability on a night like tonight, get a career. Again, his career, you would think Shai with his scoring ability, again, he's young, but his career, he got his career high, 54 tonight, which again, it's a lot of points, but you just don't see it all the time from Shai really getting you the point. And this year you have, so I appreciate that from him. I don't want to throw that in there on Shai. But anyway, don't